Hi there. Here we are in my office, and I just got done with the workout. So I am going to be in gym clothes during this episode. This is the episode that kind of does a tell all for you. And I think it's important that we are always very honest on this feed and channel. And that's like I said, it's a big deal for me. So this is the episode talking about the collapse of my, I would say, business, life, marriage, all of those things. So last year, it was actually 2024. My marriage ended. My company was under attack, and the hurricane came, and that was Milton. And financially, everything looked stable. Everyone looked in on this life that I had. And that's why I was so intentional about the things I was posting because I knew that my journey was going to be something that I wanted to share publicly. But I just didn't know where that was. It was a healing journey for me. And financially, everything looked super stable. From the outside, people thought I was successful, but behind the scenes, my life was completely unraveling. And today, I want to just talk about that year. 16 years in the making, Coastal Capital. It was the love of my life. And Coastal became something to me that was transactional at first because when I was younger, I was in fight or flight at the crash of my first business as an entrepreneur, which was Chaos, the clothing store. And then I did anything I could to get myself on top. And a lot of it was for approval and people to believe. I'm sorry, I have a vacuum going off in the background. People to believe that my life was successful because that's where I wanted to have some sort of encouragement and belief around that. I would say it stemmed from younger years. My father, I always wanted his approval. I always wanted to be, successful, and I didn't ever want anyone's help. It was a prideful thing, I guess, for me when I was in my younger years. And then through my marriage, I realized some of the unhappiness that I had caused me to gain weight because I was pretty much eating, I guess, and doing all the wrong things for my body. I wasn't really paying attention. I wasn't being mindful. And so I had gained quite a bit of weight. And I will talk about my weight loss in a different episode. But today I want to really focus in on the building the business for 16 years and how I defined that as success. And so it was really, really Coastal Capital became a transactional thing at first. I have clients and I have vendors and people who were sending business, and it was a transactional type of business for me. Every transaction was money, money made my life happen, money bought things that were monetary. And they also started building onto allowing myself to delegate help. One of the things that I learned, and I think my brother said it early on, is that my father was an entrepreneur. He was an attorney, but he had his own law firm, and running that it took a lot of work. But delegation was something that was very difficult for him. I know that he had employees and things like that, but delegating work to free up your time, I always like to say one of the quotes is there is no I in team, but there is an I in time. And so that's really important to me. And so delegating work to people became something that allowed me time. Now, as an entrepreneur, were those people actually giving you the time back or were they taking time from you? That's something that I was leading with my gut instead of my brain. And that's something I looked inside. I realized I don't know if you have ever done anything with the EOS book or attraction or anything like that. But when I started learning that mentality through that book and just doing some self growth, I realized that a visionary needs an integrator. I also started incorporating different type of trainings when I was hiring. So the culture index, the predictive index, and finding people's index scores. I was really honing in on someone who was persuasive, that had a hook back D. That's me. Why would I hire someone the same as me? And so I learned a lot through the journey of having a large office. And so Coastal, as it was transactional, I started hiring the help and then I started growing. I started being able to use my voice. Again, back to the weight loss quickly. One of the things that healed me and honestly gave me my life back was using my voice. And that is something that I have a gift giving back. And it also makes me feel like I have a cape on because when am able to speak and talk to people and help them, it is what I live for. It is what my purpose is. And so I started healing from talking and realizing that what I'm doing for a living and what I'm teaching my team and what I've hired on, I wanted to believe from my gut, but my brain knew it was not the right team. Does that make sense? So the year that I hired a mentor for my team, I started doing some real personal work. And when the team starts doing the personal work with you and you want them to grow alongside of you, it you realize that what you started and what you want out of your life might not always be the same. Some people never change it. I knew for me that it was absolutely not just a job. Coastal Capital was a career, but I also wanted to change the way entrepreneurs viewed themselves when it came up with borrowing money so they could learn about how they borrow money and where to borrow it from. And it became something that I talked about a lot on stage. Now, what you don't see if you're not in finance is most people don't apply for loans or financing unless they're in a position that they really have to, or they have capped themselves financially, or maybe they haven't built business credit. It's usually at a time that they need money, not want, it's usually a time that they really, really need the money. And so I started realizing that we have a problem and we need to be able to educate to get out of that problem. So I started with my voice and stage appearances and New York Stock Exchange and shows on NASDAQ and ones in the background here in my office. And I actually have things all over my office from billboards to books that I've written. So it's been an amazing journey. But when I realized that the team around me and my husband and the things at the time were not the people that I wanted to move forward with, I started trying to figure out how to get out of this fight or flight situation. And so for 16 years, my life was defined by building my company. And it wasn't just a job for me, it was my identity. Every single day, I help businesses grow, helping clients secure financing, building something that I believed in that would change entrepreneurs and supported them. And it just really looks like a success story at first. And so I have to tell you, this is not a bashing session, but my divorce was really hard. I was friends with my ex-husband, and we always promised one another that if we ever got to a point that we couldn't become friends or stay friends, that we would separate. We had some issues within our marriage. Obviously, a lot of people do, but there were things I couldn't overcome. There was a lot of deceit and a lot of disruption. There was alcohol abuse, and there were things around that abuse that I would say were very difficult for me. I had lived with somebody who had 3 DUIs, and I'm being very forthright because I absolutely it was very hard to commingle business and personal. And when someone has a DUI within your company at a company structure and you don't discipline them because they are your significant other, that rolls through the company as well. And that's a CEO move that I should have made to separate the business and personal. And so that was a really big disruption for me. And there were some times that I gave an ultimatum, and those ultimatums didn't seem to happen. And you can't change someone, and that's okay. But I had to separate myself from the damage it had done in my household. And I also was sick of driving and making sure that everything was taken care of and all the finances were taken care of and the business was taken care of. So my home life was literally sitting in my bed and being unhappy for multiple years. And it was really disruptive for me. So that marriage, I had to finally put my foot down. There was a time that I had to be in Nashville to speak, and my ex had to be at an event that he was representing my company with, and there were abundance of spending that happened every time that this alcohol abuse was happening, and I couldn't financially afford to have another $7,000, $10,000, $17,000 issue with someone who absolutely couldn't be transparent about those things. And so I had to put my foot down and I said, I'm done. At that point, I knew that my company was going to fall apart because he was my salesperson, the top of my sales. I had taught him everything from 2009 2008, I had taken him into a course and taught him how to build, and he was an unbelievable salesperson, unbelievable. And he could sell anything. I always say ketchup popsicles to a lady in white gloves. I said he might have been better than me. And that was something that was hard for me to ever say because I was, when I was in transactional side, the best salesperson I could ever imagine. That's just something I loved and I did very well. But when you move from the transition from transactional to a wider spread, um, I would say a wider spread option for yourself for the future and something you want a wider spread vision for your company, it's something that becomes hard to become transactional. I think it was hard for me because I've been out of it for about 5 years, really teaching. And so at the time that I kicked him out and my company is now failing, I have now let everyone go because financially I was not able to sustain, everything that was happening, and then at the same time, the hurricane hit, and it caused $243,000 of damage to my home that I had to pay personally, and I got a $32 check from my insurance company. I'm actually suing them right now, and I also went through an amicable divorce, and my ex-husband was court ordered to pay half of the debt that he was accountable for. And I have not heard from him, no idea where he lives. And he took all of my clients to a competitor and built a business under their name in a new division. And there's so much more that goes into that, but I'm not going to say much more about that. So that was my personal devastation, legal battles, financial pressure, emotional reality of watching something I've built for more than a decade start to disappear. That wasn't just my company, that was my marriage and my home. At the same time, I had to, for the first year, file a loss on my taxes. I remember in 2023, we closed $18 million in production, and I filed taxes for about a $660,000 loss because of what I had gone through. And I had carried some debt in with the company and thought, we're going to make it out of this when we're still working together. And that never happened. And while I was building a technology, I had basically, I would say my limbs ripped off. And so it forces you, and not to laugh, but I'm laughing because I'm in a really great state right now where my feet are on the ground and I sat and built, what can I build to change the momentum as an entrepreneur? It's about how you pivot. It's about how we figure out the next step. It's not about what happened to us, it's about what happened for us. So let's change the dynamic of how we think between our ears. What is changing for us, not to us? What is the lesson in this? Okay, so out of all these awful things that were happening to me, and there was one other one that was kind of, actually two other things that happened in that time, from the hurricane and everything else. My CFO, who was one of the best in the business, passed away during a rugby accident. He was the one who had access to all my financials. So I had to find a new CPA to understand my story during this time and try to consolidate my books. He passed very suddenly, and then I have 4 animals, and one of them was taken, and her collar was cut, and she was 13 years old, and her sister that I've had since birth, they have, it was a very, very difficult loss. So I had all these things happening, and I remembered that I disrupted this life outside of the natural disaster, I disrupted it. So I started feeling bad for myself for a few minutes, and it was a very lonely collapse. And so the year forced me to confront something most entrepreneurs fear. What happens when everything you built collapsed at the same time? What do? You have this public persona now because we are on social media. We have all of these people who see the inside of our life that looks perfect. I have these beautiful vehicles, beautiful life. I've traveled extensively and done some amazing things. What do I do to take this mask off? What do I do to go back to the basics? I had a super supportive family. Thank you for everything to help me through this. I have a very supportive heart internally because I know that I can get through this. And I have a great supportive group. But what the hardest part was is trying to confront the banks that I've been partners with forever without diminishing my ex, without, it was very difficult. But you know what? My story is my story. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It matters what you can do to teach other people. And so it forced me to confront a lot. It forced me to hit resilience versus reputation. What does that look like? Look at this. I didn't do makeup or hair today. I went for a workout. This is not reputation. I'm looking for resilience. I want entrepreneurs that are ready to get raw with me. And why do we want to separate our identity from our business? We have to. What do I like to do? You know what? I put a stripper pole in my gym. At 50 years old, I'll be 50 this year. I did that because I wanted to see if I could put myself in a position to do something that was so far outside of the box. And man, is it hard. It's a great workout. It's so hard. My friends have come over, my nephews, my whoever, and just have fun. I've made this room that used to be my office, this place that I can have fun. I have my workout facility in my home. I was able to save money by quitting the gym. There's all sorts of different things that you do when you have to separate your identity from your business. I realize cooking is one of my favorite things in the world, which I've always loved to do, but it was fight or flight for me when it was some alcohol abuse in this household. It was very, very difficult to have a fun time cooking for people. It was more stressful than it was fun. Now I can look around my backyard and I see beauty. I see my family having fun. I see myself sleeping at night 8 hours. I haven't slept 8 hours. I used to sleep 3 because I was in fight or flight at all times. What is the illusion of stability? Why do we give that off? What is the illusion of stability? You want to know what stability is? It's standing on your 2 feet, knowing that God gave you another day, the universe gave you another day, and that you can control what you can control today. What are your gifts? What are your gifts? What are the things that allow you to talk to other people or communicate with other people? What are your gifts to help other people? The more you give, the more you receive. But it's not about receiving, it's about what it feels like here. I remember one Christmas I took my ex-husband in my office. I wanted to fill bags for homeless. I know a lot of people, they have either a yay or an A with the homeless, but you know what? I dropped those bags off. We filled them with everything from feminine products to I think I put some um, we put kids' toys, we put everything in these bags, and they were little backpacks. And what I did when I pulled into that homeless shelter is I saw every single person there at church. These were not homeless on the street begging for drugs. These are people who were homeless because something happened to them. And my life changed at that moment. It was the Christmas day that I spent driving bags over in a 911 and filling up baskets to bring into these homeless. And it was amazing. And we also want to talk about why collaboration matters. And that's why I'm doing this show. This is why I'm doing this Chaos to Capital channel, because collaborative work helps. I'm in a space right now that I have 0 employees. 0 for the first time ever. It's me. It's me running multiple companies. It's me working through my day and figuring out what can I do to change what matters today. And today I want to ask for help and collaboration. What can we do together to help change entrepreneurs' lives when they're going through something like this? Because mental health is super important. The year taught me so many things. I wish somebody had told me earlier. Success is so much more fragile than people admit. Entrepreneurs offer, we all tie our identity to the companies that we build, but the collapse ends up feeling like a piece of yourself. It's been so hard to change from Coastal Capital to Capital Pulse, but at the same time, I had to disconnect. And the people who survived the devastation aren't the ones with the most resources. They're the ones who had the most perseverance, resilience, and who rebuilt. And so today, the last part of the segment, I just want to say I'm rebuilding. I have a new system that I built, a new platform, a new way to think about entrepreneurship and funding. The process is what the channel's all about, not just success stories, but the reality of the collapse, the resilience, the rebuilding. If you ever had to rebuild your life or your business and you understand exactly why this conversation matters, then I want you to subscribe to my channel. And it is free. I want to collaborate. I want to talk and figure out where we can really make a difference together. The last thing I want to talk about is just practical live tips. What happens when entrepreneurs lose everything? Why success can disappear overnight? And what we can do together to make a difference. This is my story. Tomorrow I'll be in makeup and whatnot, but I'm going to continue to post. And I'm hoping that I can impact one entrepreneur with this journey, one entrepreneur's life. And that would be a wrap today. Have a blessed and amazing weekend. Courtney Farhat.